Hey, welcome back. It is a terrific Tuesday on Liquid Lunch. I'm John Tobacco. You're watching Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. Now, this is a 2-hour show. Sometimes we mix it up in the first hour. Sometimes we mix it up in the second hour. But I love to mix it up. It's my favorite segment because that's when we talk to the purple people of America. We talked about it a little earlier with Republican Party Chair in New York State, Nick Langworthy, that there's a silent majority out there who aren't all red or all blue. They're purple. They're in the middle. And they like to have thoughtful conversation, but they're silent on it. Every day we mix it up right here. Today we have an unbelievably dynamic duo. We have Bill Cortese. He's a Republican strategist, joined us many times on the show before. And Josh Kravitz is a Democratic strategist. He's also running for city council right here in New York City. Guys, thank you for joining me to mix it up.
Thank you.
Now this is the point where I throw out the topics. I mix myself up a drink, sit back and relax. That's why I like to do this in the first segment usually. In the first hour, so I can have a drink a little earlier. But guys, I want you to take a look at this because it's beyond me how you can deliver articles of impeachment against the president, like Nancy Pelosi and the squad just did, and then turn around and say you want to work with the president. Here's what Nancy Pelosi said.
In terms of our work here, it is infinitely better than what was initially proposed by the administration. And I credit our chairman, Richie Neal, for helping us navigate all of these places. The unity of our caucus on specific priorities in order to get the job done. And again, the brilliance and knowledge of Richard Trumka as to the ramifications of every provision that was in the legislation.
Josh, this is your party. I'm going to go to you first.
Okay.
How do you bring impeachment and then say you want to work with the president?
Well, I actually don't know how you can bring impeachment in good faith and not do the work of the American people at the same time. Then you'd really be partisan if you were only doing impeachment and you were doing no other work. How can we as Democrats make a case to the American people and say, hey, Trump put his electoral interests first at the expense of what was in the United States' national security interest, and then go around and say, we're not going to pass USMCA because we want to impeach him and we want to give him an electoral problem and say that he doesn't have an achievement. It would be hypocritical of us as Democrats to not do the work of the American people while we're accusing the president of not doing the work of the American people.
Aren't the Democrats pushing their political agenda with the impeachment? And basically what they're saying here is they like USMCA, but they didn't want to worry about that until they furthered their political agenda, which is impeaching the president.
Well, everyone knows that they did drag their feet on USMCA on passing this. They certainly had the numbers to do it between Republicans and Democrats to pass it. What's funny is I can't wait to see the bill signing when you have Nancy Pelosi, who's delivering articles of impeachment and is going to clap behind the president as he signs this into law. But I think people can't forget that this was something that President Trump campaigned on in 2016, talked about. It's a reason why I think a lot of these Obama voters in 12 became Trump voters, these white working class voters in some of these swing states in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, because he knew and he talked about what was happening in trade, what was happening between our trade in Canada and Mexico, that we were being treated unfairly. And this was someone who went out there. People, the pearl clutchers kind of said, you can't talk about that. These are our biggest trading partners. But the truth is he brought it to the table, negotiated a deal that I think is going to benefit us, and now Democrats and Republicans are backing it.
Can I interrupt you just briefly? I don't know. I really don't know. What are the substantive ways in which this differs from NAFTA in a way that helps the American worker more? Because I haven't really seen much of it. Now, certainly NAFTA needed to be updated. It's a piece of legislation, or it's a partnership between nations that's from the 1990s. I mean, they didn't anticipate the fact that we were going to be sending computer chips across borders at the time. So certainly it needed to be updated. But no one's articulated to me, Democrat or Republican for that matter, but particularly Trump since he's running on it, what is the substantive change between what USMCA is and what NAFTA is? We say, oh, it's great, it's an achievement he ran on. What's the substantive change? No one's articulated it to me. Now, it could be a messaging problem, but no one's articulated it to me.
Well, I mean, I don't know if we have the time to get through the nitty-gritty of a
well, I know it's going to lower pharmaceutical costs, and I know it's going to make it a heck of a lot easier for U.S. agencies like the FDA to go up to Canada and check out facilities before we accept some generic drugs, rather than take a whole team over to China where they're making most of our drugs right now. So to me, I don't know all the minutiae either, Josh, but I'll say this. anything we can do to lower drug prices is a good thing for America.
And
if you ask me.
anything, any big bipartisan piece of legislation that both parties can agree on at this point in time is a good thing too.
I agree.
Okay, so
You ring the bell.
yeah,
How about
let's,
that?
hey, yeah, I'll drink to that. So the IG report came out yesterday. Big news. Apparently he didn't find any political motivation, but there were 17 or 18 areas where the FBI and the agents of other agencies didn't omitted things or changed things or missed things that started the investigation. Here's what Trump had to say about the IG report.
Embarrassment to our country. It's dishonest. It's everything that a lot of people thought it would be, except far worse. They fabricated evidence and they lied to the courts and they did all sorts of things to have it go their way. This was an overthrow of government. This was an attempted overthrow, and a lot of people were in on it, and they got caught.
So the IG, Billy, can't bring criminal charges. But my reading of this, and I've been breaking down some of these things here, they basically changed an email. Okay, there was an email. They said that they didn't tell the judge that Carter Page was once an asset for the U.S. government for 5 years. The agency he was an asset for reminded them in an email in 2017 and said, hey, you better tell the FISA judge that he was our agent. And instead, they changed it. A lawyer at the FBI changed it to say he was never an asset. So Trump's not making that up. They fabricated a document that went into the FISA court.
Well, it's important to understand, too, what the scope of this IG report is very narrow. It only covers the components of the Department of Justice. It does not cover all these other components. Some of them you alluded to, CIA, NSC, things like that. What I'm looking for is what John Dunham, whose nickname is the Bull. This is the guy who took on the mob, the guy who took on the Klan, who's the U.S. attorney up in Connecticut. His investigation, he came out strongly against this, and I think that he has somebody. It's very clear that his scope is wider. I think he has a broader view on what's happening here, and these are important things. That this does not happen in a bubble. This didn't happen just under the DOJ. It's important that we know, and I'm looking forward, before I kind of pass judgment, on what this report
Josh,
is.
you're a Democrat. You're a great Democratic leader here in New York. You're running for city council, but you grew up in a Republican household. You think when your parents read some of this stuff that our own FBI did to omit things that may be exculpatory, you think regular, good old-fashioned Republicans should be mad?
Well, I think, look, the FISA court and the powers that the FISA court has is extraordinary. It basically allows, in certain circumstances, for the government to spy on Americans, and we allow that, and it butts up against the Fourth Amendment, and we allow that with a lot of evidence they have to present to a FISA court, and the FBI and the DOJ have the burden of making a really perfect case in order to spy on an American. So the fact that there were some abuses, that's a problem. However, Trump and his allies have been talking about the predication of the investigation. They said that there was nothing to predicate the investigation, to even begin an investigation, to get it started. And that's not true. What the IG found is that, yes, there was proper predication between Manafort and Flynn and all their contacts with the Russians. It was reasonable for an FBI agent to start that investigation. And so in that sense, Comey and McCabe and all of them have been absolved. If I may say one more thing, the Durham situation is actually very alarming to me, because he's in the middle of an investigation, and you shouldn't be talking about criminal subjects, and it's a criminal investigation. He shouldn't be talking about criminal subjects in the middle of an investigation, and he went out of his way in the middle of an investigation, just like they did for Hillary, basically, to say, we don't agree with the findings of the IG. That's a real problem.
I kind of like that. I kind of like it when you guys are on. And last week we had on Josh with Daniel Chrisman, who was clearly out of his mind, and it almost got hairy in here. At least we have two fine gentlemen here representing different points of view. But thank you guys. Josh Kravitz, Bill Cortese, join us. Take a quick break. We'll be back right after this.